Before they were legends, they were just children with dreams. What potential lay hidden in these faces, unknown to history? From hardship to triumph, these young souls would change the world. Welcome to Timeless Frames, where we reveal the untold stories behind these iconic figures. Let's dive into this. Joe Biden at age 10. This childhood photo captures Joe Biden at age 10. Long before politics, he was just a young boy with big dreams. 7-year-old Winston Churchill, 1881. This 1881 image shows Winston Churchill at age 7. Even as a child, he had the determined gaze of a future leader. Frida Kahlo in 1919. A teenage Frida Kahlo is seen in this 1919 photo. Her artistic genius and resilience would later make her an icon. Albert Einstein at age 3, 1882. This 1882 photo captures Albert Einstein at just 3 years old. No one could have predicted that this quiet child would redefine physics. Amelia Earhart, circa 1901. A young Amelia Earhart poses in this early 1901 photo. Her adventurous spirit would later take her across the skies. Vladimir Putin in 1960. This 1960 image shows a young Vladimir Putin. Decades later, he would become one of Russia's most influential leaders. Elizabeth II with her grandmother and sister, 1939. A young Princess Elizabeth poses with her grandmother and sister in 1939. She would later become the longest reigning monarch in British history. Helen Keller, circa 1891 to 1894. This early 1890s photo captures Helen Keller as a child. Despite being blind and deaf, she would go on to inspire millions. 11-year-old Theodore Roosevelt, 1870. Theodore Roosevelt at age 11 is seen in this 1870 image. His adventurous childhood shaped the future 26th U.S. president. What glimpse of the future hides in this rare photo of young Nelson Mandela? Let's watch. 19-year-old Nelson Mandela, 1937. This 1937 photo shows a 19-year-old Nelson Mandela. His journey from a young student to a global leader had just begun. Infant Adolf Hitler, circa 1889/1890. This baby photo of Adolf Hitler, taken around 1889, shows him in his earliest years. No one could foresee the dark path he would take. Marilyn Monroe as a baby, 1926. This 1926 baby photo captures Marilyn Monroe before she became a Hollywood legend. Her future would be filled with fame, beauty, and tragedy. 13-year-old Margaret Thatcher, 1938/1939. A teenage Margaret Thatcher is seen in this late 1930s photo. She would grow up to be Britain's first female prime minister. John F. Kennedy at Hyannisport, 1931. This 1931 photo captures young John F. Kennedy at Hyannisport. The boy in this picture would one day lead the United States. Pablo Picasso with his sister, 1889. A young Pablo Picasso is pictured with his sister in 1889. Even in childhood, his artistic brilliance was beginning to emerge. Nikola Tesla. This captures Nikola Tesla as a young man. His innovations would go on to shape the modern world. Billie Holiday in 1917. This 1917 photo captures a young Billie Holiday. She would later become one of the most influential jazz singers in history. 14-year-old Thomas Edison. A teenage Thomas Edison is seen in this rare photo. His brilliant mind would soon revolutionize the world with groundbreaking inventions. 16-year-old Sigmund Freud with his mother, 1872. This 1872 image shows a young Sigmund Freud posing with his mother. The future father of psychoanalysis was still just a boy with big aspirations. Could this young man ever imagine the masterpieces he would one day create? Let's watch. Vincent van Gogh in 1872. This 1872 photo captures Vincent van Gogh before he became a legendary artist. His passion for creativity was already taking shape. Charles de Gaulle in 1908. A young Charles de Gaulle appears in this 1908 image. His leadership would later define France during World War II and beyond. Eleanor Roosevelt's school portrait, 1898. This 1898 portrait shows Eleanor Roosevelt in her school years. She would grow up to become one of America's most beloved first ladies. 16-year-old Marie Curie, 1883. This 1883 photo features a young Marie Curie at age 16. Her scientific brilliance would lead to groundbreaking discoveries in physics and chemistry. Indira Gandhi in 1924. During fasting, in this 1924 image, a young Indira Gandhi participates in fasting. She would later become India's first female prime minister. Ronald Reagan and his brother, 1912. This 1912 photo captures young Ronald Reagan with his brother. Decades later, he would rise from Hollywood actor to U.S. president. Ernest Hemingway in 1916. A teenage Ernest Hemingway appears in this 1916 photo. His adventurous spirit would later define his legendary literary career. Eva Peron at her first communion, 1926. This 1926 image shows Eva Peron at her first communion. She would grow up to become Argentina's most iconic first lady. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, 1935. This 1935 photo shows a young Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who would later become one of America's most iconic first ladies. Did you think that you know all about these historical photos? If no, then you are at the right video, so just hit the subscribe button to watch more videos like this. Babe Ruth, on right, 7 years old, 1902. In this 1902 photo, the legendary Babe Ruth is seen as a 7-year-old boy. His love for baseball was already evident. Wilbur Wright, circa 1877. A young Wilbur Wright is captured here around 1877. Along with his brother Orville, he would change the course of history with their pioneering flights. Helen Keller, 7 years old. At just 7 years old, Helen Keller is seen in this image. Despite her challenges, she would go on to become an inspiring figure in the world of education and activism. Hillary Clinton as a young girl. This photo captures a young Hillary Clinton before she became the first female U.S. presidential candidate and Secretary of State. Young George S. Patton. This image shows George S. Patton as a young boy. He would later rise to fame as one of the most famous generals in World War II. Jimmy Carter, 13 years old, 1937. This 1937 photo shows a young Jimmy Carter. He would later become the 39th President of the United States. Ernest Hemingway, 7 years old, 1905. A young Ernest Hemingway is captured here in 1905. He would go on to become one of America's greatest literary figures. Claudette Colvin, 13 years old, 1953. Claudette Colvin, at 13 years old in 1953, became an early figure in the civil rights movement when she refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery. Lyndon B. Johnson, 1915. This 1915 photo shows a young Lyndon B. Johnson. He would grow up to become the 36th President of the United States. John D. Rockefeller, 18 years old, circa 1856. At 18, John D. Rockefeller is seen in this circa 1856 photo. He would later become one of the wealthiest men in history, shaping the American oil industry. Who could have predicted that this young boy would change music forever? Let's watch. Michael Jackson, 1969. In 1969, a young Michael Jackson is seen here. He would go on to revolutionize the music industry with his unique talent and unforgettable performances. Elvis Presley, 1954. Elvis Presley is seen here in 1954, just before he became known as the King of Rock and Roll. This was the start of his legendary music career. Donald Trump in his childhood. This childhood photo shows a young Donald Trump, long before he became the 45th President of the United States. Growing up in Queens, New York, his early years were marked by a competitive spirit and a drive that would later define his career in business and politics. Barack Obama, childhood photo. This childhood photo captures a young Barack Obama, long before he became the first African-American president of the United States. His bright eyes and curious nature hint at the leader he would one day become. George W. Bush in his childhood. A young George W. Bush is seen in this childhood image. Raised in a political family, he would later follow in his father's footsteps to become the 43rd President of the United States. Bill Clinton, childhood photo. This childhood photo shows Bill Clinton, a boy from Arkansas who would later become the 42nd U.S. President. His charm and leadership skills were evident even at a young age. Ronald Reagan, childhood photo. This childhood image of Ronald Reagan shows the future president long before his Hollywood and political careers. His youthful energy and charisma were already apparent. Gerald Ford, childhood photo. A young Gerald Ford appears in this childhood portrait. He would later step into the presidency at a critical time in American history. Did anyone suspect this child would one day lead a nation? Let's watch. Richard Nixon, childhood photo. This early photo captures a young Richard Nixon, years before he became the 37th President of the United States. His intense focus and drive were already developing. John F. Kennedy, childhood photo. A young John F. Kennedy is seen in this photo, full of youthful energy. He would later become one of the most beloved U.S. presidents, remembered for his vision and leadership. Dwight D. Eisenhower, childhood photo. This early photo of Dwight D. Eisenhower captures him as a boy before he became a 5-star general and the 34th president. His disciplined nature and leadership qualities were evident even then. Harry S. Truman, childhood photo. This childhood image of Harry S. Truman shows him in his early years in Missouri. Despite poor eyesight, he was a determined student who would later lead the U.S. through pivotal moments in history. Franklin D. Roosevelt, childhood photo. A young Franklin D. Roosevelt is seen in this childhood photo, long before he led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. His confidence and determination were evident early on. Herbert Hoover, childhood photo. This image captures Herbert Hoover as a young boy. Raised as an orphan, he would later become the 31st president, leading the country through economic hardship. Calvin Coolidge, childhood photo. A young Calvin Coolidge is seen in this childhood photo, growing up in rural Vermont. His quiet demeanor and strong principles would later define his presidency. Warren G. Harding, childhood photo. This childhood image of Warren G. Harding shows him as a boy in Ohio. His charm and ability to connect with people would later propel him to the presidency. Woodrow Wilson, childhood photo. A young Woodrow Wilson appears in this childhood photo. His early passion for education and leadership would lead him to become the 28th U.S. president. Did this young boy know he was destined for both the White House and the Supreme Court? Let's watch. William Howard Taft, childhood photo. This early photo captures a young William Howard Taft before he became both President and Chief Justice of the U.S. His disciplined upbringing set the stage for his future success. Theodore Roosevelt, childhood photo. A young Theodore Roosevelt is seen in this childhood image, full of curiosity and determination. Despite childhood illness, he grew into a strong and fearless leader. William McKinley. This childhood image shows William McKinley as a young boy. His early sense of duty and leadership would lead him to the presidency during a time of American expansion. Benjamin Harrison. A young Benjamin Harrison is captured in this early photo. Coming from a family of public servants, his leadership path was set from an early age. Adam Scott on Boy Meets World. A young Adam Scott showing off his early acting chops on Boy Meets World before hitting it big in later TV roles. Danielle Fishel on Full House. Danielle Fishel made a cameo on Full House as a child, long before becoming a household name as Topanga in Boy Meets World. Jennifer Love Hewitt on Kids Incorporated. Jennifer Love Hewitt in her childhood role on Kids Incorporated, the starting point of her career before she became a teen sensation. Debbie Ryan on Barney and Friends. Debbie Ryan, as a child, on Barney and Friends, before becoming a Disney Channel star with her show Jessie. Could anyone have predicted that this young star would shine so brightly in the future? Let's watch Naya Rivera on Family Matters. A young Naya Rivera made an early appearance on Family Matters, showcasing her natural talent before she became a star in Glee. Evan Peters on Phil of the Future. Evan Peters in his childhood role on Phil of the Future, way before his breakout performances in American Horror Story. Beyonce Knowles on The Famous Jet Jackson. A young Beyonce appeared on The Famous Jet Jackson long before she became a global superstar. Taylor Lautner on My Wife and Kids. Taylor Lautner as a child on My Wife and Kids before becoming famous for his role in the Twilight series. Julie Benz on Hi Honey, I'm Home. Julie Benz as a child on Hi Honey, I'm Home, long before she became a well-known actress in shows like Dexter. The Rock on Hannah Montana. The Rock, aka Dwayne Johnson, made a memorable cameo on Hannah Montana, showing his playful side long before becoming the superstar we know today. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share our Timeless Frames channel to get more videos like this. For now, goodbye.